So we've got to start somewhere. What would philosophers say to us now? Let's start with David Hume. And I'm going to start at a strange place at the end of the treatise, his book he writes when he's 28. By the end of the book, it's absolutely clear that he declared that the thought, that the self, is not necessary for thought. On the contrary, the self is the final thing idea you generate. After thinking has already burned in your mind endless trackways. We would say, I suppose, neural nets. Neural nets then that define who you are through your passions, through your experience, through your ability to associate one thought with the other, through the great principles. The self then is an afterthought. Why does this matter? Well, Hume is saying something deep here. He's saying that thought is based not on some acts of I think, therefore I am, or I perceive, therefore I am. No. It's much more unconscious, I suppose, than that. These trackways, these networks are just laid down in my brain by my habits. But they don't have to be laid down through my brain. There is absolutely nothing in Hume that says the trackways are only in me. The networks could spread beyond me, if only I was clever enough to do it. Using Hume then, it is absolutely straightforward to understand the internet as some sort of neural net into which we are all caught, into which brains increasingly emerge. So that who they are coming at the end of the process is already caught up in processes beyond themselves, in all those strange journeys, in the networks that belie any simple human understanding. There's a car coming, we're going to get a bit of barking. Oh, it's a van. That's the first point. Going backwards in my backwards reading, Hume has two great suggestions for where such networks come from. The first suggestion he makes in the first book, and even more in the second, they come through human interaction. I am very likely to believe something if I believe you believe it. And if you believe that I believe that you believe it, we're likely to burn the trackway deeper and deeper and deeper. Great complex social construct ideas then are made not just because many people accept them, but also because they excite passions. And each time the passion I feel the passion, I demand the truth is given. Passions then, Hume says, made those networks all the deeper, makes the thought feel all the truer. And each time I revisit it, the trackway becomes deeper, more pronounced, more powerful. More than that, it is a game of Chinese whispers, because each time I think of you thinking of it, I think of you thinking it differently. And gradually then, the great thought evolves. It changes, kind of organically. But it has no grounding in reality. For Hume, it is just a delusion. It's akin to some sort of mad conspiracy in which the passions, and he's very, very clear, the passions of compassion and the fury it generates, as often as not, are driving one's demand for that thing you call truth. They are colouring it. The truth is given in the feeling, because it is the feeling that is burning the network. The feeling and the fact that that feeling is shared, that is making that network feel true. But, Hume says, right at the beginning of the book, there's a totally different way we normally experience the world. Look at the world. There it is. Now hold that same thought in your mind, he would say, and you will see straight away that they are different. The real world is intense. It has a liveliness, a vivacity as the sun rises and the mist sinks, that burns in the brain of its own weight, that hoops up separate sensations of green and form to create for free in your mind a landscape, all contiguous to each other, one given to the other. The real world then burns trackways of its own from outside into our brains. Now, Hume calls this, says, all thoughts have a certain liveliness, a vivacity of their own, an ability to hoop together as they come from outside. And what is more, that vivacity cannot be aped by the passions. It works differently. It gathers itself together. It's kind of gregarious. It forms great principles. The principles of things that fall together are remembered together. And the principles of resemblance. One form of green brings your mind all the other forms of green. And so trees and their green can be paintings, or they can be reality. This then creates networks in a way humans cannot replicate. It is a world from beyond, a world outside, a world that for us is our truth, in that it is from that outside our life and death are defined, and actually the world in which we live is defined. And then Hume spends the rest of his philosophical life worrying about how the great ideas of the passions endlessly muscle in and try to destroy, distort and take over that vivacious world that falls upon us from beyond. In this, there's an entire algebra. Resemblance, which works for the passions and works for thought, is often the rogue. You don't need to go into the algebra to get the lesson. That for me, Hume is the thinker of our times, because he is the thinker who is most peculiarly able to explore how reality is different from fantasy, how those networks that are forced on us by the world, that burn for free in our mind, are distinct, have a palpable power of their own that is easy to lose, in comparison to those networks that we share with others, that are powered by passion, that we power up in ourselves. The world of artificial intelligence, then, versus the world of real and actual intelligence. Of thought versus feeling. For Hume, writing in the 18th century, these are living issues. And are they not for us today? Where pipelines take people on strange journeys from an interest in alternative medicine into far-right fascism. Less pipelines, I would always say, more trackways, neural networks, journeys of passion that have already been made and therefore make themselves again. Journeys, then, that contrast radically with the quiet world that falls from outside, that feels to be always there, in which we still are for a while. The two agents then of networks, the two ways ideas can be hooped together, in which we exist, in which we choose where we are, is going to be the battle line of our times. And for Hume is surely its herald.